Hello and namaskaram. Welcome to another video in my channel. I am in a place called Bertem, which is close to where we stay. It's a wood forest fields area which we come out for walking and talking to spend some time with nature. This year has been particularly reflective for me. I don't know for what reason. I have been deeply in thought about how my professional life, personal life has been, and how it needs to be or how it will be going forward. As a part of this reflection has also been a very critical analysis of how useful doing a PhD has been for my personal case. Next year, even I am surprised. Next year it will be 10 years since I started my PhD. I started my PhD in 2017, in the summer of 2017, and it's already 10 years since I started. Uh, Professionally as well, I started working in 2012, soon after graduating with a BTech in electronics and communication engineering. If you take an average career these days of 30 years, I'm almost nearing the midpoint. Not that I think that I have accomplished something great, but nonetheless, time moves on. It's almost halfway. Coming back, I have been thinking quite deeply about how PhD has helped me. Indeed, quick conclusion is that it has indeed helped me to grow both as a human being and also as a scientist engineer. Um, and it's not just the PhD research work. So I'll be making a series of videos of aspects outside my own research which have helped me in my PhD journey. And to cut to the chase, today's video is about the lab meetings, how those have helped, and interesting aspects of how you look at lab meetings when you start your PhD through the midpoint and towards the end. I've noticed that I speak a lot and the video tends to go to beyond 15-20 minutes. So I'm not sure, but I will try to keep it succinct and brief this time. So, as I've said multiple times, I did my PhD in bioengineering. I come from a BTech in electronics and communication engineering background. So, bioengineering program at IISc is an excellent program, which is an interdisciplinary program. And depending on the project you end up in, you might do a do the your research directly with the bioengineering department, or by affiliating with more than 2 or 3 departments. In my case, I had a supervisor from the electronic systems engineering department and also the molecular reproduction development and genetics department, which is now called the Department of Development Biology and Genetics, DBG. So, simply put, one engineering lab and one science lab, a molecular biology lab. The way engineering research was done in both labs were like poles apart and both good in its own ways, both contributing in its own ways to make you a well formed scientist, if you can call scientist engineer. Today I would like to talk about one thing very specific that was happening in my science lab. uh, so I did my PhD with the biology part of it was with Professor Annapuni Rangarajan, and it's a cancer biology lab. And I had basic understanding of how the healthy cell works and how the human body works, basic biology, 10th standard, 12th standard biology, and some very scientific idea of cancer biology, but not really the cutting edge idea of it. Now, as soon as I joined the lab, um, I tended to naturally gravitate towards more of the engineering lab because that's where I'm comfortable with, that's my forte. But I also wanted to be well versed in what my bio lab does, all the uh, techniques, methods, and also the language of it, language of molecular biology. So a week after I joined the lab, I was told that the lab has this tradition, or um, I wouldn't call tradition, but just the way of working, that every Fridays they would have a lab meeting. The whole Friday morning used to be dedicated to lab meetings without fail, be it holiday time, be it summertime. Occasionally, if some festival used to fall on a Friday, very rarely it used to be postponed but never cancelled. So I was both intrigued and stressed about attending my first lab meeting. I still remember, and people already told me what it is going to be about. usually it's a roster, and one or the other student or an intern or or a postdoc would come and give a brief presentation about uh, how their work has been in the past month, or more than that, and what difficulties they have been facing, the raw, really raw data, nothing post processed, what has failed, what has worked, what needs to improve, and a very brutal critical analysis of the data. And it used to be really brutal, both from the professor and from all the other students. So the thought of it was indeed very scary, given that I hardly understood anything that the lab talks about. So it was like Greek and Latin to me to start off. So my first lab meeting, I still remember. I think it was one of the postdocs in the lab who was giving a presentation. Obviously, she was very polished. She had already done a PhD and she was doing her postdoc. And she was introducing what experiments she had done, what controls she set up, what control experiments she set up, what observations she made, and was all asking herself whether these observations really validated or confirmed the hypothesis, or it was really some lucky data, you can say. And there was very critical discussion on her presentation, and feedbacks were given, and they were very honest feedbacks. Some I felt at that moment were like very harsh feedbacks, but everybody was seemed to take it in a very positive manner. She took it with a smile. I wouldn't have done that, but I understood later that it's all part of the game, and it's all for chiseling you or forging you into a better scientist. And I was given consideration, given that I was coming from an engineering background. There was one more colleague of mine, but he was from a biotech background, who was in the mathematics program. And likewise, a couple of years down the line, another person from mechanical engineering background joined the lab. So it became a bit more understandable for them to kind of incorporate me into the lab. But for them it was like, I was like a kid in the lab, not understanding what is going on, and everybody was so eager to teach me, oh, I think you did not understand this concept is like, this is how it works. And both before the lab meeting, after the lab meeting, and even during the lab meeting, Professor Rangarajan, initial weeks, and other my batchmates specifically, who are directly doing a PhD in the molecular biology department, they used to pause and try to look at my confused face and maybe explain without breaking the flow of the lab meeting. So that's how I got initiated into the lab meeting culture. Different labs have different cultures. That's what I soon realized. Even some biology labs did not have lab meetings. They preferred more one-on-one meetings with their supervisors. Some labs only had lab meetings and not much one-on-one meetings. Most engineering labs did not have lab meetings unless on special occasions when some of the lab members had to give some public presentation, and they used this opportunity to practice their talk. Um, so that used to happen in my engineering lab. And the thing that was happening in my engineering lab were more late night debates and discussions about the problem at hand, how do we solve it, and that added its own flavor. Now, how did these lab meetings help me? I was very stressed out initial days, because to, if you take the very first part of this bioengineering program, they have something called Biopracticum. The idea is that you do certain small scale projects, not really your PhD work. And then at the end of the first semester, where the Biopracticum was, you give a presentation about what has been done, what were your observations, etc. And there was a Biopracticum 2 as well. I think it still exists in the part of the bioengineering program. So I had to present to bioengineers, people mostly coming from a more biology background. And I was, as with any human being, I was very worried that I might come across as a stupid person and somebody who, uh, what are they talking about kind of person. So that's when, so I did more of my Biopracticum 1 work in the biology lab, and also a bit of work in the engineering lab. And I was told then that, so there is this thing also, right? There is a responsibility from the labs that you work to make sure that when a lab mate gives a public presentation, be it a department presentation or a seminar or a conference talk, they have their responsibility to make sure that their lab member puts a good show, in the sense that they make a very scientifically sound talk, nothing fancy or fantabulous, but grounded and scientific. So I understood that even without me requesting, uh, a lab meeting had been scheduled, or an agenda on a lab meeting. Lab meetings are always scheduled, but an agenda on a lab meeting was scheduled for me to give a mock presentation of my biopracticum presentation. I was more stressed about that than my actual biopracticum presentation, because I knew that there will be some engineers in my biopracticum presentation, but this is all biologists. It was a totally different forte for me. By then I had begun to get used to what happens in the lab, how to capture new concepts, how to talk to people after the lab meeting to understand them. And a very nice thing about this was that by the time the lab meetings got over, it used to be like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. Messes used to close, and we used to all go out and have lunch, and it used to be a full day affair. And I never felt that it was a waste of time. It was all very scientifically enriching, although at those moments they were nerve wracking. All of my lab mates can agree, because you were curious about what criticism, what feedbacks you will get. So I was given a slot to present. So I still very much remember that first presentation, because it was crap. So I made slides. My slides, I tried to take inspiration from everybody before me, but I was somebody who came in from like 3 years of working in the industry, that too at NVIDIA and BEL, which is a public sector company. There was never an opportunity to make a presentation. It had all been rusted. Uh, Making slide decks and also speaking, both were going to be new to me. My I thought my slides were really beautiful. I was gonna like impress them, impress my lab mates. They are gonna say, "Oh wow, everything." Indeed, the images I had were very wow. The devices I had made were super nice, but it was hollow, is what I got the feedback. And they were like, "You are not confident in the concepts that you are discussing. You are not thorough in the very basic concepts that you are talking about." Feedbacks all around, very critical feedbacks. But at the end, they said that uh, the effort that you made is what counts, and it's a long journey, and you are doing something that not it's not something that's done every day by to students who pursue PhD. You are uh, putting your feet on a domain that's totally orthogonal to what you are comfortable with, but that's not an excuse. Given that you are into this program, now you need to be an expert in molecular biology and as well as electronics engineering, microfabrication. There is no excuse for it. Then I went back, my batchmates, Shweta, Kishan, Tamasha, so many people are there, Satish, my seniors, so many people. And all of them helped. There were some amazing teachers in my lab, scientists, but more than that, amazing teachers. Uh, they sat with me, tried to give me feedback on this needs to improve, this is how you should present. And I went back and modified it. And my presentation was so bad that they gave me a week again to give a presentation to do it again. Usually that never happens, because one time and then you give feedback and that's it. There's a lot of wind here. So I think after a week or couple of weeks, I gave the presentation again. Not that I made exceptional improvements, but it was survivable for the biopracticum presentation. I did not know then that I was getting forged with fire. So I gave a presentation, but surprisingly, my biopracticum presentation, at least for me, was very good. I was very happy, much better than how I initially thought it would be. It was reasonably well received, and I was happy. So that was the beginning. Then it's a long journey. Then I realized that at every moment like this, we have annual work presentations, we have the colloquium. Before that, we have the comprehensive examination. Or at all these moments, you have to give a presentation. At every moment, I had to pass through this filter of the lab. Um, in the biology lab, it was on the privately public lab meetings, but in my engineering lab, it was a presentation to few colleagues who were working in the similar field, and the Professor Hardik. Both contributed very well. What I used to then do was prepare my deck, first run it through the engineering lab to make sure that that side of it is good, and then present it in a way that both the biology and the engineering community can understand my work. So I had to kind of simplify things in a way that uh, it's understandable to a wide variety, but at the same time not losing its scientific groundedness and scientific thoroughness. So it was a very unique way of trying to make presentations. And after 2 years, maybe after the comprehensive examination, I got used to this flow. And I still remember at the beginning of my third year, I started noticing change in myself. I could then getting feedback was there very obvious. I started getting good feedback for my work that helped me with my work and my understanding of or growing up as a researcher. But I started being able to really grasp what other people in the lab are doing, and also start giving very useful feedback. So not really for the sake of giving feedback, not really just to show that, oh, I know more than you, which is never going to be the case, right? I am in a molecular biology lab. They have been, that's their bread and butter, and that's never in your mind. But then the happiness of being, aha, I understood what you're trying to do, that is unimaginable. So the fact that you understand what your colleague is trying to do, and you being able to like bring in some concept, some methodology, some mathematical formulation from the engineering side, and tell them that you could do this and then that might help you solve it. I was able to genuinely start giving feedback to my lab mates, which they appreciated. And more than that, it was so satisfying to me that I am now able to, it's like learning a new language. It's like learning to ride the bike, drive motorcycles. So I was like, yeah, I can now talk the language. And that has stayed with me. It's also something that I miss at my work now, because we don't have such lab meetings. I've been thinking of writing an email to Professor Rangarajan about this. But yeah, so this is first part of that. So lab meetings really helped me to become both a grounded and a well-rounded, scientist engineer, I would say. Scientist is still a big word for me. I always have imposter syndrome, but at least I can, if I see a public presentation, I can see how thorough, thoughtful, how well prepared the presenter is, and the effort that has gone into both do the work and also present it to a public audience. And it took 5 years for me to go through this process, and the lab meetings really helped me to understand the ethos of research. And next time, some of you who are doing PhD, if you feel, next week I have a lab meeting, know that you are going through fire to come out as a very resilient, very uh, what I would say, airtight researcher. Make sure that you don't leave any control experiments out. Your experiments are airtight so that it stands the test of time. I hope people could resonate with this, and see you next time. Bye bye.